All right, David Pakman talking to Dennis Prager. I don't know if you know who either of these guys are. David Pakman, I've been following for years. Pretty decent liberal commentator on YouTube. I stopped watching him. Um, I stopped following him closely probably about a year ago when his videos on YouTube at least became more sensational. I still like his thought processes. He's a very clear thinker. Dennis Prager is a fairly influential conservative talking head. Uh, Co-founded PragerU, which puts out a lot of propaganda videos that you can see on YouTube. You can check out anybody for commentary on this stuff. But I watched the first minute of this, and I was like, all right, if I'm going to start doing videos again, at least for the political stuff, I think I'll start here. And I think maybe I'll make another channel and put politics in one place and music and the arts in another. And the reason I stopped making videos too is because at the end of January, beginning of February, my traffic was like 10% of what it had been. And I actually watched a David Pakman video, and he said something is going on with the algorithms on YouTube because I'm down to like 10% of where I was. And because I need a lot of viewers. It's just I don't think I'd work on this platform if it's somehow throttling me so that nobody could see the videos. I'm like, personally, I don't care either way if anybody follows me or whatever. But if the platform's making it impossible for people to see me, well then fuck it, I'm not gonna make it. Anyway, let's talk about this video.
Today we're going to be speaking for the first time, maybe not the last time, we'll see how it goes, with Dennis Prager. Many of you may know him from PragerU, from his radio program. He had a conversation not too long ago with our friend Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks. Dennis, welcome. It's great to speak to you today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Just to start, and this can be so quick and then we move on, just as a sort of sanity check, I've started to ask guests in this year, last year, the following question. Is there any way to accurately say that Donald Trump won the 2020 election? Just a simple answer if there is one, and if not, it's fine for you to explain further.
So I have a relatively simple answer, and
love
I've
it.
given it from the election day to this day.
Yes, sir.
I am agnostic, which has satisfied neither the left nor the right.
Okay.
My colleagues on the right want me to say it was stolen, and people on the left want me to say we are certain it wasn't stolen.
Well, and half of the right also wants you to say that, right?
Half of the right wants me to, I wouldn't say half. I would say most people on the right believe it was stolen or that there was a good chance it was.
Prager's actually correct about this. The number of Republicans or Republican-leading independents who believe the election was stolen has actually increased since the election is finished. Believe it or not. I saw a Forbes article about this. The headline's hysterical. Republicans increasingly realize there's no evidence of election fraud, but most still think 2020 election was stolen anyway, poll finds. It's up to like over 60% now, whereas before it was right after the election, it was hovering in the low 50s. Now it's over 60%, which serves to prove that the more you repeat a lie, the more people believe it. And I'm realizing now, if I try to fact check everything in here, this video is going to be hours and hours long. So I think either I'll just stop at important points or I'll go back and edit it for just the most interesting points.
Wow.
I don't know what that gains us, but it's fair that you ask. See, it's funny. You regard that as a sanity check.
I do.
So let me offer my sanity check.
Please.
Do you believe that men who say they're women can compete with women in women's sports?
I think in a lot of sports that does not make sense.
This was one of the reasons why I wanted to look at this video. I saw this point and I saw the points coming up, and I didn't see anything after that. But this is the kind of thing that made me want to look at this video. Prager is equating a moral viewpoint with a fact. He's creating a false equivalency as if these two things are the same. David's question was as to whether or not you believe in the facts at hand, or if you have facts to disprove them. Prager is offering his sanity check, which is his personal morality check. Now, I'm not going to. I think in the end, I agree with what David says here, but that's not the issue. The issue is these two things are not the same. Okay, where David's asking you to accept reality, you're asking him to agree with you. Those are not the same thing. In other words, the question was, do you believe that men that say they're women can compete with women in women's sports? The answer to that is yes. The answer to that would always be yes. If we decide as a whole that that's possible, then yes. So yes, that can be. If we decide as a whole no, then no, that cannot be. He's asking for him to agree on a matter of belief, not a matter of fact.
So how do you...
Was that the answer you expected? Because you did a little bit of a look to the side there. Did you think I was going to...
No, I didn't look to the side because I took off my earphones.
Understood, sir.
I realized that I don't need them.
Okay. But this is a different topic, Dennis.
I'm sorry?
It's a different topic. Do we want to close on the election first?
Oh, well, you said you just wanted to ask that question for a sanity check.
Okay, and you're agnostic is the answer.
Yeah. So I am agnostic because so many things happened that were odd or unique. Like it was the first time that a president had ever, an incumbent president had ever gotten more votes than he did in his first election and lost. That all the swing states went in his favor. That 17 of the 18 counties that are considered bellwether counties went in his favor. Those who think something bad happened are not out of their minds.
These are not fine examples of critical thinking. Now, what were those again? The first one was, this is the first time a president has ever received more votes than his previous election and yet still lost. My answer to that is, so fucking what? Seriously, like you can't figure this out? Is this really that hard to figure out? There are, I mean, just think about it, okay? But if somebody were to need, examples, how could that possibly be? Let me say this. Joey Chestnut, who's one of the greatest food-eating champions of the world, okay? Joey Chestnut, in, when's this? 2005, he made it to the hamburger eating championship qualifier rounds by eating 56 Crystal Burgers in 8 minutes. Then, in the final round, Joey Chestnut beat his record. He beat his record. He ate 91 hamburgers, which is incredible. But he lost because Kobayashi ate 97 hamburgers. There's a real-world example of how that could possibly be. The number of people that vote isn't a static number. In effect, with both the hamburgers and the presidential election, the total pool of people that voted was more. It's not only theoretically possible that you can beat your record and still lose, but it's in practicality, obviously, it's very much a real thing that you can get more votes than what you had previously and still lose. Not a difficult concept for a child to grasp. Voter turnout in 2016 was 136.5 million, and voter turnout in 2020 was 159.5 million. An incredible turnout, a very high percentage, comparatively speaking, of the eligible voters turned out. We should be happy about that. That's a good thing. That is how you lose, and still you can still have more votes than you previously had and lose because of those numbers. His next point was, he said, all of the swing states went in his favor. I think he's meaning to say all the swing states went in Biden's favor. I think that's what he's saying. I'm not really sure what his point is. Is he saying, how could that be? Go back to 2016, the key swing states went in Trump's favor, just narrowly, very fucking narrowly. How could that be? That's what happened. That's how people voted. The same thing in the 2020 election. Narrow victories in freaking all the swing states is how Biden won the race. I mean, in Arizona, he won by 10K. Georgia, Biden won by 12K. Michigan wasn't even close. Nevada at 33K, I would not consider close in Nevada. Pennsylvania was 82,000. That's really not that close. Wisconsin was 20K. Okay, that's close. That's how Biden won, just the same way, in the same fashion that Trump won in 2016. Not as narrowly as Trump did. Trump was those results were much tighter. So I'm not really sure what his point. That's not even a point. I don't know what he's saying. And his last point was the issue with the bellwether counties. This is really a red herring. This is not even a logical argument. I'd recommend Prager open up his any investments he has in stocks to open up the prospectus and read what it says. Past performances are not a guarantee of future returns. The argument just doesn't make sense. So that if trends don't continue in exactly the same fashion that they have, then obviously something illegal happened is not a reasonable argument. The fact of the matter is those bellwether counties these are predominantly white blue collar worker counties. That these were the type of people that always tended to go down the middle. You know, they more closely resembled American voting as a whole. But if you want to deep dive on what happened there, 538 has a really good analysis of the bellwether counties. 538 is a really great poll sites. Like they have all this data, and I'll just read for you one slice out of. They have a long analysis, like trying to explain to people this is why this happens. Okay, they say arguably it was 2016, not 2020, when bellwether counties first showed signs of falling by the wayside, given their dramatic swing to the right in that election. A total of 35 counties voted for the winner in each presidential election from 1980 through 2012. 19 of those counties continued their streak in 2016 by voting for Trump, but the remaining 16 counties ended their bellwether streak by voting for Hillary Clinton. In other words, only 54% of the bellwether counties from 1980 to 2012 kept their status in 2016. And notably, the 16 counties that lost their bellwether status in 2016 are more racially diverse. Median of 46% non-Hispanic white compared to 89%, and more highly educated. This is the MAGA base is white, low education. So those counties those previous bellwether counties are not going to represent the future. They didn't represent it in 2020, and those counties are not going to represent it in the future either because of the hyper-partisan divide. You're either black or white now. That's it. And they're going to have to pick different counties, more diverse counties to represent the nation because those counties no longer work. As a whole, these three arguments are not viable arguments for how it is possible that Trump lost. None of the three of these arguments are viable arguments. Together, they show a sign of somebody that has not thought critically about this in the least. Okay, it was at that point that I originally stopped watching this video with Pakman and Prager. I have no idea how Pakman is going to respond to that. My guess is, since he wants a wide-ranging interview, he's just going to let all that go. I would too. I'd be like, we're not going to, if those are your arguments, it's literally not worth arguing with you because he's not an agnostic. He's clearly not agnostic on it. He's picked up very weak, not I wouldn't call them weak arguments. I would call them non-arguments of presented by somebody who's not critically thinking about the race. So from here on out, I'm going to see what David says about this, and then I'll just edit from here on out.
Okay. We don't have to make this the subject of the conversation, but things sometimes happen for the first time. I guess the question I would ask as a follow-up would be, did you see compelling evidence from any one state that suggests that Joe Biden lost it even though he was given the win? Is there a single state where you feel confident it was stolen?
Georgia might be one of them. Pennsylvania might be one. And of course, people say, because I love to have people I differ with on my show. And so I read the left. I only wish the left read the right as much as I read the left.
Well, I try to, but what evidence was there in Georgia?
You probably do. I think if you do, you're atypical. But in any event,
yeah. What's the Georgia
I'm
evidence?
told all the time that courts dismissed all these cases. That's true, but that's the tragedy. See, if I were an America-loving Democrat, and there are 11 America-loving Democrats, and there are America-hating Democrats. There are both. But there are America-loving Democrats. If I were one, I would say, please, let us air all of these complaints.
Yeah.
Let us have some type, as close as we can, to some neutral authority. Not rule on it. Just allow the American public to hear what evidence there might be. And I'll add another thing. If one believes, and I'd love you to respond to this.
Yeah.
If one believes that Donald Trump is a neo-Nazi fascist.
Something I've never said, but we could maybe find someone who believes that. Yeah.
Well, okay. I believe you haven't said it, but it's not germane to my
Okay.
to my argument, whether you said it or not. It's said often that he is a fascist. Excuse me. That he is a fascist is constantly said on the left, and so if you believe that, aren't you morally bound to cheat on his behalf? For example, if I were in Germany in 1932 during the elections that brought Hitler to power, I tell you, I would have cheated on behalf of any other party than Hitler's party.
Yeah.
Aren't you morally bound to cheat if you believe the man is a fascist?
You'd have to ask someone who believes that. I don't know. I mean, I think, listen, we only have a half hour and...
All right. You know, I got to say, Prager genuinely seems likable. And he comes off as a reasonable person. His demeanor is likable. But the sounds coming out of his mouth aren't the words of someone who's put great thought to anything so far. I mean, maybe it gets better for him. In the beginning of this section, he went back to the canard about the MAGA canard that, well, they actually never even heard the evidence. He was saying he wished that people would be able to air their grievances. The courts are not the place to just make accusations. That the courts are not a playground for people's belief systems. The canard is that, well, the cases were just dismissed without hearing any of the evidence. They're not, either these people do not understand how the judicial system works, or they're purposefully being dense. Like when a plaintiff makes his case to the judge that he's going to... Courts are not obligated to hear garbage. Let's state that, okay? A plaintiff has to be able to show that harm is not just conceivable, but plausible. They have to make a case. This is standing. Standing means you have to be able to show that actual harm is plausibly happened. The suit has to demonstrate an actual law was violated. The suit must state facts that are verifiable. These are things that did not happen in any of those cases. Okay, there was no harm shown by a plausible event that could be verified, and we know that to be true because the cases that judges did allow to go through, let's say like the Michigan case, the big Michigan case, what ended up happening with that? They all went to that case turned into a trial against the Kraken lawyers for wasting the fucking court's time, where they were going to decide how much they were going to be fined for doing that, and because they knowingly attempted to use the court as an avenue to just air their grievances, which is basically how every single judge described these cases. It's merely an airing of grievances that are not based in reality. What else did he say? Now he's talking about the morality factor. Again, dude... someone standing in morality in a particular point in time. There was no point in time in 2020 where there was a moral event that required people to en masse, game the system. They didn't have to because Donald Trump lost. Yeah, he's creating a possible event that never occurred It does not equate with whatever happened in Nazi Germany, because none of those things happened. What happened was Donald Trump lost. He lost that election. Biden won. There was no grand scheme necessary to undermine the election on behalf of Joe Biden, because the things that he believes could have happened didn't. Simple.
We're 5 minutes
so
in.
Look, well, let's talk
I
about.
think what I would say is the audience can judge. Is there evidence out of Georgia that's convincing to them? Is your answer to did Trump win logical into them in any way? Let's let the audience decide on this section of the conversation. Fair. I'm really interested in talking to you about woke, anti-woke, cultural issues, etc. Now, you and I could pick one thing like cat litter boxes in bathrooms, or quote, men and women's sports, or drag shows, or whatever, and we could just talk about that for 25 minutes. But I want to zoom out a little bit, because you've been in this for a while, and I've been following many of the things you've said about these issues. Here's my curiosity. If you look at polling, if you're going to just reject polling, then we'll talk about that. But let's assume that we have some polling that tells us something that is relatively close to what the country believes. Record support for same-sex marriage today. Record number of people saying, I'm moving away from religion. Highest in the Roe v. Wade era of the country says abortion should be legal in most cases. 60% says we haven't gone far enough on making trans people feel welcome. Okay, I could go on, but you get the gist of what I'm saying. Do you feel as though this is a lost cause and the country has clearly gone in a different direction from where you would like to see it? Or what do you think might happen that would turn around this 30, 40-year trend of moving to the left culturally that I believe we are seeing in the polls?
There's no question we're moving to the left culturally. The first thing people have to do is recognize reality. You may or may not be happy with it. Just parenthetically, I just did an hour of radio because I do a lot of hours that are not politics, and
Sure.
and it was about a subject because I'm writing a commentary on the Bible, and I'm finishing volume 4, in which I discuss on one verse, is there luck in life or is everything God's will? I'm a deep believer in God. And of course, I believe there's bad luck because that's reality. If you get a kidney stone, and I use that example, I don't believe God placed the kidney stone in your kidney. I believe that it was your crappy luck that you got a kidney stone.
But let me just dig it, not to interrupt, but I want to make sure we know what you mean by luck. Do you mean by, let's imagine the prevalence of kidney stones is 2%, just for hypothetical for our conversation. God created a world in which there's a 2% prevalence of kidney stones. You had the bad luck to be in the 2%. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. That's
okay. Now, why did God create the kidney stones to begin with?
Because God did not create perfect nature. I mean,
I absolutely don't like where this is going, but I do really appreciate David's mind, the way he's able to step back and say, all right, let's build the logical structure for this. And, both of them can communicate in this fashion. I do appreciate David's attempts, but I do not like where this is going.
Trees can fall, avalanches can happen.
Okay.
It is our task to fight cancer and to be able to live with avalanches.
Got it.
I would.
Oh my God,
the human
where are
being
we
wanted
going
to
with
leave
this?
the Garden of Eden. That's my take on the story. We rather live in a free universe than in a perfect universe.
Okay.
But I'm glad you went.
Now that we
to
got that out of the way, answer the question.
The only
I
reason
don't even remember
raised
what the
this
question was at this
is
point.
I am not happy to acknowledge the power of bad luck or good luck, but it is the reality. I am not happy that 45% of young Americans say, according to Pew, that they believe in free speech but not for hate speech. It shows you how incoherent young people's thinking is, that they don't understand that the whole point of free speech is to allow speech that you can't stand. Okay, I'm a Jew. If you don't think the Holocaust happened, you're a liar, you are sick, you are perverted, but you are allowed to say it. By the way, you're not allowed in most European countries. You can be imprisoned for denying the Holocaust
Yeah.
in
And to
most.
be clear, I'm a Jew as well, and I believe exactly what you just said.
I believe you.
Okay.
I had a feeling you would, but just know your side is as opposed to free speech, as more opposed than ever any segment of Americans has ever been. We are living through the greatest crisis of free speech in American history. That poll is an example. Here's another one.
Okay.
25% of Americans aged 40 and over have never been married, as opposed to 8% in 1980. We went from 8 to 25% in 40 years.
Can we
It
talk
is a
about that one a little more? That one I
Sure.
find interesting. I'm not 40, but I'm in a long-term relationship. I have a baby.
Yeah, I'm totally not interested in where this is going. They're going to spend a lot of time in the weeds and things that I really don't care about. The free speech thing that he quoted, that may very well be true. I don't think that's necessarily. I mean, there are crises going on. I don't think that's the one that I'm gonna. That's the hill I need to die on. Okay. What I feel like we're getting to with Prager right here is this conversation eventually is going to come around to religion, and that we need to get back to that. That's because so far, really, all of his arguments have been based on belief systems. David hasn't really tried to hem him in with, okay, well, let's deal in the world of facts, and this may also point to what Prager said earlier. I wish people on the left would listen more to people on the right. I mean, I spend a lot of time listening to people on the right, and you know, and most. I mean, there's a lot of garbage. I mean, it's a lot of garbage. It's kind of not as well formulated as what this fellow is saying, but a lot of it is belief systems. You know, things that I believe, and the things that I believe are really important to me, and in many ways, that's the divide. You know, on the left, people are interested in inclusive, holistic legislation. You know, like that's their battle. Not just legislation, but overall, like a more inclusive and just society. And the right there's like a moral imperative for the things that they believe, which I mean, I understand the position, but we're in two different realities here, and it's very hard for people that deal in reality in a fact-based world to kind of like meet somebody whose entire viewpoint is based around their moralistic imperatives. That's what they are. It's like I don't know what to tell you, because most of the things that you believe are not true. So there's very little that I can meet. I can't meet you anywhere on this. Anyway, I think at some point I might get more into that, like the general discourse in social media. I might focus on that just to highlight exactly what it is I'm saying. Anyway, peace out.